Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, February the 13th. Welcome to our commentary. Well, you have it, Friday the 13th. I'm sure we've heard that before. I think they had some movies, as I recall, either the 70s or the 80s. They made these horror movies, these Halloween movies about Friday the 13th. I didn't see any of them because those were not the kind of movies I enjoyed, but I know they were very popular. So, Friday the 13th, here we are. I don't know how many times a year you get a Friday the 13th. That'd be something interesting to check sometime. But we have one in February 2026. Well, I have a post over at the American Thinker today talking about the change coming to Cuba. It's coming. It's just right now, it's just a matter of when it happens. The failed Castro regime is, I guess, to put it in a medical sort of way, there's like in hospice. They're not going to survive very long, and they're not going to survive because they've lost all their friends or their allies, and the countries that supported them over the years, well, they're turning away, and they're turning away for a lot of reasons. One is that it's a lot of countries have other interests, and in the case of Mexico and Venezuela, Mexico has its own problems, and we know about Venezuela. They've had at least a change in direction down there. So Cuba doesn't have those sources anymore of oil. And that's having a terrible impact on its economy, not just the economy, but everything in the country. I mean, they had to shut down public transportation. They don't have any oil. They've had to shut down airplanes. They don't have any fuel. I mean, it's a mess. Now, a lot of people ask themselves the question, why is their electricity situation so bad? Well, it's bad because the power companies or these power plants that provide electricity have not been maintained correctly. And over the years, the money that should have been spent, developing the infrastructure of the country was spent on something else. A lot of ideology driven programs. Castro had a big army for a long time, and that's kind of where the money went rather than investing the money in the infrastructure of the country. So it's a mess. What's going on in Cuba? It's a mess. As I said a few minutes ago, Cuba, if Cuba was a patient, it would be in hospice. That's where that's the best way to describe the situation down there. So when is it going to end? I don't think it'll make it to the end of the year. Maybe sooner. Maybe sooner. But one very good thing for Cuba and the future of Cuba is that the United States is involved and involved quite a bit through President Trump and Secretary Rubio, who I believe had made it very clear to the people of Cuba, or certainly the leadership of Cuba, that the minute that Castro and his puppet president Diaz-Canel go, we will lift the embargo. We will open up Cuba for investment, and I'm sure we're going to be flooding the island, not just with Cuban Americans who are going to go back to see their island, but with a lot of American companies that are going to pursue Cuba. So it's going to be great. And the money's going to be flowing in as soon as the communists leave. So I'm sure the people who are going to be working in the transition understand that and understand that things are going to get a lot better after Castro and his puppet president Diaz-Canel move away from the scene. There's a lot of talk that they may be going to Russia. There's some talk about that. Well, I don't know, but that's the talk that is out there. I have a post coming out Saturday morning. Just want to give you a quick heads up on that, and it's about the federal debt. Look, our federal debt by the year 2036, our federal debt is going to be 120% of GDP. That's unsustainable. I mean, it's not a question of political party or ideology. It's a question of numbers. You simply cannot sustain that kind of spending. Now, a lot of these programs that make up this are programs that automatically go up every year because they're sort of tied into social programs and that kind of thing. But, we just can't go on spending like this. And it's going to require a very strong American president who tells it straight to the American people and says, we just cannot go on and we have to make some changes. I'm hoping that President Trump will do that, or at least get that started as he's going, into the last couple of years of his administration. I don't think they can do anything this year because of the elections, but hopefully next year especially if he can keep a Republican House. Hopefully next year we can begin to really tackle this problem, which is eventually going to kill all of us. It's not really a political problem; it's a reality problem. You cannot spend money like this, and when your federal debt is or will be 120% of your GDP. I mean, that's crazy. That is just absolutely crazy, unsustainable. And that's how countries get in trouble. That's how their currency falls apart. That's how their society falls apart. Because when you have, I mean, remember Germany in the 1920s when ladies would go shopping, go to the grocery store or wherever to buy their food for the family or whatever, and they would carry all this cash, all this paper, because the paper became worthless. That's where we could go. I'm not saying we will, but that's the kind of thing we got to keep in our minds. So we need some strong leadership. We need some people who can basically make the tough calls. And I think President Trump is that kind of man. I'm hoping that he tackles this as he enters soon the second half of his presidency. Maybe some of you are familiar with this fellow Harry Kenton, who does these segments at CNN. He's the guy who does all these polling numbers segments. He's an entertaining guy. Just has a brand new one that he's been doing here the last couple of days about what people think of the Democrat Party and how more and more Americans think the party has become too liberal. And that really shouldn't be a shock to anybody. I mean, we've been telling you about these primaries, like the one in New Jersey last Saturday, and there are more coming this year, believe me. So the party's becoming more liberal, or the perception of the American people is that the party's becoming more liberal at the time that the country is becoming more centrist right. I don't, I think that's going to be a real problem for them to win the elections. Now, they may win the House this year. Don't overlook that. They may win the House because they don't have that many seats to pick up. And it's all going to be about the economy anyway in November. So if people feel good about the economy, I think Trump can pull it out. But, the experts are saying that the Democrats are likely to pick up the House, not by many districts, but they'll pick it up. But the party's becoming more liberal, and the American people are saying it. And that's as much as I can tell you. I can tell you tonight, but you're going to see more of these primaries. You're going to see more of these primaries in the future. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back with George on Sunday night talking about Texas. And everybody have a great weekend. We're going to get a lot of rain around here. So if you live in the North Texas area, drive carefully. That's all I can say. Good night, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.